dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit discreet. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Free speech, it's the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people of the red, bottom blue, you keep them in bed. Seeing the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets is what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset. They under the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take aim and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life, make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. Stories axed by the editor, you kill the messenger. Pay to play on the regular, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. When the vote count is irregular, you kill the messenger. You caught spying on a senator, you kill the messenger. Removing voters from the register, you kill the messenger. Need to silence any questioners, you kill the messenger. In my dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks, doing hard time for these WikiLeaks, trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat, and then they gag you. You don't get to speak, and when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit to street. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Playing on the regular, you kill the messenger. Free speech is the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people want the red, bottom blue, you keep them in bed. Seeking the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leaks till you cease, and I see your defeat until I'm deceased underneath a freezing red sheet. Become a dead man, then I hit the switch and release. When Goldman Sachs is your creditor, you kill the messenger. And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets, what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace, like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace, like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 bars, they upset, they under the rape sentence. But the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. And okay to Gandhi, take him and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. You kill the messenger. You kill the messenger. Democracy dies in the darkness.
see just a few lights in the background, and I can see the street
lights in the background
every now and then.
Okay.
You might need to switch cameras if there's a front-facing or a rear-facing camera.
Okay, I'll put an earpiece in the tech person's ear here, because I'm a technophobe.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Hey.
If you can give Syl some direction now, so she's got the earpiece in now.
Hi, Syl.
Hi. So the problem, I don't think you can see us or nothing, right? It's just a blank screen, right?
With an occasional light.
So I think...
Now, if we face this way, if the light, does that make any difference?
You probably need to go somewhere.
Have we turned up screen brightness enough?
I'll take the opportunity to introduce our other panelists as you do that.
Yeah, they want to put us on now.
So we're very lucky to have Jose Rivera, again, bravely reporting from Ecuador. Hi, Jose.
Okay.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Hello, all.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, they've moved on to someone else now.
It's not safe for Jose to show his face. And so that photo of a railroad track is from Jose. Jose tends he's got other things to take care of as well. So
I'll just interrupt you briefly. We've just realised that we didn't have any sound going out to everyone. So my apologies for all you out there in the internet land that have been watching us and not hearing us. It's probably for the best. But welcome along to WikiBees number 20. We're doing it live. We're joined here from London, from Ecuador, from New Zealand, and a few other places and people. And I'll let Bruce do his intro again. We are now, in theory, have sound on our video. Fantastic. Sure. Did you click it again? We do now.
YouTube's also buffering.
Yeah, I'll jump back off again. As long as it's not red, we're live. Cool. Thank you, guys.
No, Sean, I can't see anything. You see anything?
Yeah.
Can you see something?
Oh, Bruce, in your hosting panel, you can mute people if need be. So yeah, just
understood. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hearing.
So do you have sound now? Can you hear us now?
Are they talking to me?
Yeah.
Hey,
what?
Hi, Karen. Show your face briefly.
Yes.
We had no sound for a while. I think we have sound. No, we're not having. We're still. So we're
we can hear you. That's fine.
We can hear you fine. We're just working on lighting.
Yeah, go
it's
for
looking
it.
like the Blair Witch Project. You can hear me clearly?
Yeah, that's
what was that?
Can see you, Karen. You're right. It is like Blair Witch sort of.
Yeah, and I don't want to hide my identity.
No. You go.
Oh, too late for that. I'm the decoy.
Just explain it is dark. Obviously, that's why I need to.
Do you want me to start speaking at this point, or?
No, we're trying to get sounds going.
Okay, you're still doing prep. You're still doing prep, yeah?
Yeah, we're still should be really close. Problem. Hopefully, we've got it.
No, I'm not in a rush. I just didn't know whether to.
How many more minutes?
Oh,
I don't know. There wasn't way.
So we don't
You're
have
good.
sound quite yet. We're recording
Bro.
this, so
No. I have no criticism of anyone who's technically able at all. Believe me, I'm in awe of anyone who can flat out do my fly up my jeans. So I'm with you. Should use another metaphor. Yeah. Okay. I'm running on nicotine and caffeine here, and I'll try not to blow it in the face for my lighting assistance.
Look at the light there.
So one of the first things I'm going to do is introduce a song by Joe.
cool.
Yeah. It'll be like a variety show from London.
That'll be fantastic.
Bruce.
Take this one. I'm going to hold that. Right?
Okay.
I'll be your cameraman, and then you take that over.
It's like being interrogated by the cops. You got this light, right?
And it's just a buffering problem. So I don't think I can post the links personally.
Sarah Harrison and Julian Assange rescued him when he was abandoned by The Guardian. So it's been a particularly cowardly attack for the last 7 months because the person they're attacking is incommunicado, has no right of reply. So it's kind of interesting that it begins with Chelsea Manning being held incommunicado and kind of ends in a certain phase with Julian incommunicado. Our biggest fear, especially as an Irish Catholic, is that they may kill him when they enter the embassy. The last time the British SAS, who had a long history of killing unarmed Catholics in the north of Ireland in the 70s and 80s and 90s, one last time they entered an embassy in London was 1979. It was the Iranian embassy. And two of the men had put their weapons down and had their hands on their head, and the SAS executed them. And they also executed Mairead Farrell and Sean Savage in Gibraltar, who were unarmed, never had any weapons on them that day. And then mother was fearful of me, and the child tore away from mother and ran up and gave me 25p, and I was like, thank you. And I wasn't asking for it, but thank you. And then now, in a place of 24 hours, 4 people from other countries came with hot food.
Yes.
And then the next night, a Kiwi turned up, and I know there's a lot of Bledisloe's tension there, but he gave me food, and so it's quite a spiritual experience for me, and also to be so close to Julian and physically, like 10 yards, and sometimes it hits you. It's overwhelming what he's going through, as well as not to mention all the children have been slaughtered in Iraq and Afghanistan and Timor, and to know that people on the street have profited. When you realise that the Prime Minister of this country's husband is the largest shareholder in British Aerospace, that is literally making a killing in Yemen today. Now, I was only in this country for 7 weeks when I arrived in '96 to organise around a trial of 4 women who disabled a Hawk fighter that was being sold to Indonesia to use to slaughter East Timorese, and British Aerospace dragged me to the High Court and put a lifetime injunction on me. And they said if I agreed to it being lifelong, they wouldn't charge me court costs. And they did this to 13 people, and 4 of us said we're not going to sign on. We had 2 hours defending ourselves in judges' chambers against it's the firm that represents Rolls-Royce. And we were left with a £100,000 legal bill. And 2 of us went out and broke that injunction. So that ties into Advent, because the Magi, they were injuncted to come back to King Herod and give them the location of the Christ child. And they broke that injunction, and Herod launched a search and destroy mission. Now that goes on today, in Yemen, in Syria, and the list is endless. And all we have to do as first world people is to avert our gaze. I grew up during the Vietnam War. They wanted conscription. Julian Assange is born in Queensland in 1971 when they declared a state of emergency so a racially selected rugby team from South Africa could play a few games. His background, you've got to understand. Now, this city is populated by zombies. Now, what is a zombie? A zombie is someone who can't empathise with the other, whether it's a child in Yemen being killed, whether it's Julian Assange being slowly... it's a slow-motion crucifixion, and it's mental. The cops come here. One night when the Ecuador president was here and we thought he was going to get lifted in the summer, they drove up at speed, they pulled to a halt, and 3 of them jumped out with automatic weapons, And I picked up my, I don't want this to be misinterpreted, my stool, meaning a seating thing, a device to sit on, and I walked with my arms outstretched and sat in front of the steps here. Now, they did that to psych Julian out, now when the Americans said, with their nuclear weapons, they wouldn't confirm or deny the presence of nuclear weapons on their ships and planes. Now, that's what they did saying with the indictment. And they asked them, why won't you confirm or deny that Julian Assange is an indictment? They said, literally, we don't want him sleeping at night. So this is a continual attack on his physical body, the lack of sunlight, but also an attack on his mental health, And it's outrageous that people who are like him, like Australians and Queenslanders and people from Townsville, aren't prioritising this. People who are geeks, which I'm not, or, into tech and all that, or people who are on the spectrum, or people who have children, or people who have parents, aren't empathising. So we had a 3-week presence here in the summer, and then we went to Dublin because the Pope was going to Dublin, and we hand-delivered, through an intermediary, a letter to the Pope asking him to intervene. And we still hope that that's a possibility. I heard the Pope is on his way to Ecuador. I'm not sure if that's true or not. So in Christmas week, we'll be sending delegations to all the nuncios in Dublin, in London, in Canberra, in Buenos Aires, wherever Maradona happens to be. And we'll try and organise that. And we were working on limited resources and tech. And we're also on the 7th of December, which is the 8th anniversary of him being detained without charge. That's next Friday. We're hoping delegations will go to the High Commission here, to Australian embassies in Washington, D.C. We'll be using in Wellington, we'll be using all the contacts we have. And in Australia, people will go to the Department of Foreign Affairs. So that happened on his birthday. There's only
7th
one
of
person.
December.
So there's one person in Sydney, Dave Smith, the Anglican vicar boxer, went there. My brother, Han Jordan, Tamil, a refugee activist in Australia, and a friend from Derry. But we hope to get people to go to Australian and British embassies next Friday to bring Julian's plight to light, because he's become, like Manning was, increasingly invisible. And, people like Chelsea Manning need to lift their game, and people like Edward Snowden need to lift their game, because Julian Assange did a lot for them in terms of solidarity. Now, I'm in a position to say that because I'm a former prisoner of the United States. And I can tell you the jail they put me in, I had 23 men in my cage for 9 months in a room with 140 men. I was going to work white boy in that jail, and I was assaulted and spat at for the first month until the solidarity came in, and in terms of people writing me letters, and it made me more secure. Now, Chelsea's now a celebrity, and she needs to decide who she's working for, and she needs to leave the United States if she doesn't want to be dragged in front of a grand jury, given immunity, and her silence be taken away. Because at that point, she'll have to decide whether to go back to jail or a real jail, not a military jail where you get your own cell, where you're in the same subculture, but a real jail where they can have you raped and killed, where Julian Assange will end up. So, Chelsea, Edward, if you're listening, you should be thinking and reflecting on what Julian has done for you, And if Chelsea hadn't joined the military, that she knew tortured people when she joined it, and Edward Snowden hadn't joined the NSA, and Chelsea, who didn't screw up with Lamo, and Snowden went to a better place in Hong Kong, would Julian Assange be in this position he is in today? That's not a rhetorical question. There goes the real party. I don't know. I don't know. If Chelsea hadn't screwed up and got into a chat room with an FBI informant, would Julian Assange be in this position today?
Sorry,
Julian
Kieran, your
Assange,
sound is cutting out a little bit.
Sorry.
Your sound isn't very good, Kieran.
My sound isn't very good.
No, it is. Yeah, yeah.
That should be up. Is that better?
Yeah, it is better. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been holding that up. Okay, we'll sit down now. We're going to move back to where we were before. And, okay, sorry for that rant, but okay, here we go.
Oh, no, that's great. And sort of expected, Kieran, you're very articulate.
Yeah. Well, sleep deprived as well. So, sometimes you get really angry. Sometimes you get really sad.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, it's such an important story. Yes.
I think they're in the lesson. So if you have a question, please go ahead.
Yes. Inviting questions. Also, anyone in the chat stream and YouTube. That was a wonderful song from you, Joe. So I'm in awe of anyone who can sing a cappella, with no instruments accompanying. And that was wonderfully done. And that was Black Boys by Mopeds by Sinead O'Connor, I think, wasn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Do you want, and so there are three of you there, right? There's you, Kieran, and Joe, and Sil from Hungary, right?
Yeah, we're the Camden Catholic worker, and you don't have to be Catholic, and you don't have to be a worker. And and so we're an affinity group, and what we encourage is other groups, whether it be Latin Americans or geeks or students or Australians in London, form such a groups with people they trust, because obviously there are spy cops and infiltrators. And, like the guy who did the security on me at Julian's 40th birthday walked into the US Embassy in Iceland and offered to infiltrate WikiLeaks. So wherever you shouldn't be naive, so you need to work with small groups you trust and then relate laterally on the basis of nonviolence to other groups you trust. And that's how we've been able to sustain this presence.
Yes.
Yep.
I just type, just asking for any questions on YouTube.
So I mean, I can. Yep.
So Kieran, I've been following you. I've been following your tweets, and it sounds like you've been very successful in getting a 24/7 presence around the embassy from the Catholic workers.
Yeah, I mean, we're a marginal group. I mean, in England, like the United States is the only church-going part of the first world, and that's scary because the biggest Christian phenomenon there is not Methodist or Catholic or Episcopalian. It's non-denominational evangelicals, which means they make this shit up as they go along. Okay, there's no intellectual tradition there. There's no tradition, and the way Christians in Europe would view televangelists, I'm pretty sure it's the way Muslims in the Middle East view the Nation of Islam and whatever kind of, Judaism Madonna is into, or whatever prosperity gospel Buddhism they push in California. So, America is a weird place. So in England, since the early 90s, there have been more practicing Muslims going to the mosque than Christians going to church. Roughly 1 million Anglicans are practicing. They're mostly English. There's 1 million Roman Catholics. They're mostly not English. They're old Irish guys, people from the Caribbean, people from the French colonies. So Christianity is Western Europe largely is post-space. So the Catholic worker, being Catholic anarchist pacifist, is even more marginal and a very marginal phenomenon. So, but we have a rich tradition of prisoners. Our founder, Dorothy Day, she was an anarchist suffragette who went to jail in World War One protesting the war, converted to Catholicism, and then we had people locked up in World War II for resisting the draft. And then we were the first people to burn draft cards publicly in New York in the early years of the Vietnam War, Tom Cornell and others. And then the Berrigans, Daniel and Philip, began to break into draft boards and hundreds of other people to destroy draft files. And this developed into the ploughshares movement that you saw at Waihopai. I gave evidence of that trial in Wellington. They were found now guilty, just like we were found in Dublin. We were found not guilty, $2.5 million damage to a US plane en route to Iraq. There's WikiLeaks cables relevant to the US Embassy's hysterical response to that acquittal, unanimous acquittal. But, so some of the hammers, one hammer I've still got was used 5 times. Moana Cole, a barrister now, who went to jail with us in the ANZUS ploughshares. We disabled a B-52 bomber in 91.
Yeah.
She's works in Maori Legal Aid in Christchurch, I think. That was... So that ploughshares tradition, the Catholic worker, or the radical parts of the Catholic worker, have dovetailed for the last 40 years. Now, we have 7 people in jail, 2 in jail, 5 electronically tagged at the moment, because on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, they went into Kings Bay, Georgia, nuclear Trident submarine base, and began to disable the Trident submarine. And one of those is Liz McAllister. She's 78 years old of age. She's the widow of Phil Berrigan. Now, Dan and Phil Berrigan were on the front page of Time magazine, just like Julian Assange. And then Nixon and Hoover had a meeting about how to destroy them, just like they had meetings about how to destroy Julian Assange. And they were effectively marginalised from being central to a 50 million constituency of Catholics in the 1960s, now 70 million, to being quite marginal figures. Democracy Now! Does a whole hour program on Dan, who died at 96. A couple of years ago. I think Amy Goodman was actually in the room when Philip Berrigan died.
Wow.
So what's happened to Julian has happened before. Now, the more unique you make Julian or Jesus or anyone like that, the less relevant they are. So you got to say, who is he? Now, the best thing I've seen is the film Underground, an Australian movie made by the same people who did Balibo. And that should be handed out like Hare Krishna recipes from humble beginnings. This man has a sense of humor. This man has been at it all his adult life as a non-violent anti-war activist, And anyone who calls themselves anti-war still in New Zealand or Australia and is not active around Julian Assange has a lot of explaining to do. They really do, And some people get paid for being anti-war activists. And the people in this city, whether it's Amnesty International, Stop the War Coalition, who haven't come down to this embassy and stood in vigil or demonstrate in whatever way they'd like, really, it's very hard to take them seriously, because when the left collapsed in the early 90s, that space was colonized by NGOs. The last thing NGOs are non-government organizations. They're funded by the government, they're directed by the government, and they've occupied the space, which used to be part of the space of the revolutionary left, and which a lot of artists were around, where all the utopian ideas came from, that the Labor Party would co-opt and modify. And so that's why the Labor Party looks so much like the Liberal Party in Australia now, because you've lost that constituency, and that space has been occupied by people who are paid to manage dissent. Aboriginal people who manage Aborigines. Amnesty will manage the whole prison. Now, the Amnesty International was initiated by the former chief intelligence officer of the IRA. He was anti-imperialist. Amnesty International folded with the first Gulf War when they supported the lies about Iraqi soldiers throwing newborn babies out of cribs, and they really soft pedal on the United States, as do the Irish Green Party about Shannon Airport. You got to ask, is that to do with MI6 infiltration, special branch infiltration, or is that just because they're cowards, or they didn't think Julian Assange was an ambulance worth chasing, ambulance chasers, and they thought that his name would toxify their brand because of the lies that were being told by the same government that lied to people about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That sent my godson, Ben Griffin, from the British SAS to Iraq to kidnap 15-year-olds. For the Americans then, anyone from 15 to 60, they lifted from those villages. They took them back to Baghdad. They lined them up. And then the Americans went down those lines and picked the ones they wanted. The ones they didn't want went to Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib was minimum security. The ones they wanted, they tortured, and some of them they killed, Now, Ben Griffin also has an injunction on him that he can't talk about any experiences of the British military. So this censorship of Julian Assange is not unusual. It's happening all the time. There are people in the city who are under control orders where they haven't been convicted of crimes, where their defense counsel can't see. So there is a parallel universe. Now, Indigenous people can tell you about parallel universes, because growing up in Queensland, where when I was 8 years of age, Aborigines didn't have the vote. They weren't citizens of Australia. When I was 13, it was still illegal to cohabitate with a native in my state. When I went to jail, 30% of the population was Indigenous, even though they were 2% of the general population. They occupied a parallel universe, as did gay people in the 70s. Now, gay people have been mainstreamed, and the Irish have been mainstreamed now, But these were the other. And if you can't empathise with the other, you're really a zombie. And Julian Assange has been presented by The Guardian, by the liberal left, as the other. He isn't deserving of basic human rights, of sunshine. He should be sent either to his death, executed under the Espionage Act, or life imprisonment. Now, the place you need to Google is Florence, Colorado. That's where he's going. That's where Woody Harrelson's father died, the actor. And you Google it, Wikipedia even, they will tell you, a former warden, that it's designed to drive you crazy. You never see another prisoner. And you're not in Europe, which Britain is just about to leave. I wish they'd leave Ireland. But in Europe, they're about to leave Europe. Europe recognises human association as a basic human right, like water, ablutions.
Yes.
In America, they don't. They've got 50,000 people in solitary confinement in their system. And that's a big difference between Europe and the United States in terms of imprisonment. He's in central London. Knightsbridge Tube is 200 metres from here. When he's in Florence, Colorado, he's got to be a long way from general population. It's an easy time to come and support him. Before they Shanghai him to Durham, when he goes to jail, when they drag him out of this building, they will not be putting him in a London prison. I was arrested near the Canadian border. They had me in Pecos, Texas. They flew me to El Paso, and they put me in a really small town because they had 200 political prisoners then, and they kept moving them around and kept them geographically isolated. That's what they'll do to Julian here in England. And then they'll send him to this. He needs to fight. He needs to stay in this embassy as long as he can. He needs to then fight extradition, and he needs to fight his trial in the United States, And he's not going to be. He needs to be saved by the revival of an anti-war movement. Yes. that know something about solidarity. Because when you march and you protest, like 1.5 million people did, you incite people like me to go to Shannon Airport to disable a US warplane and risk 10 years in jail. You incite Chelsea Manning to whistleblow. You incite Julian Assange to publish. Now, if you incite anyone, you're then obligated, no, this sounds too Catholic guilty trippy, but you're obligated to follow them through the courts and follow them through the prison time. Otherwise, you're just setting them up to be smashed, you know? And Julian, the more solidarity, the easier it is for a resistor to maintain the resistance. And we live in such an atomized world now, you know, it's terrifying. And because I'm old, I'm 58, I remember a world that wasn't like this. I remember trade unions. I remember radical churches. I remember a punk scene. I remember hippies who were political, you know. Now, not all hippies and punks and churchgoers are radical. You know, they co-opted punk rock in 5 years. They co-opted rap music in about 3. But Christianity, we had a 300-year run, you know, before they'd legalized us. And we need to go back to the radical roots of whatever tradition we come from, Buddhist, pagan, Catholic, punk, feminism, whatever, you know. And you know, this identity politics is a scourge. And who, you know, when I was 17, I was being bashed in the streets of Brisbane when they suspended civil rights. Now, with these teenage identity politics kids, who are they going after? They're not confronting the cops. They're going after Jermaine Greer, an elderly woman, and no platforming her from Cardiff University. They're going after Peter Tatchell, a gay man who was gay when it was criminal to be gay and where you'd be poofed bashed. You know, they're going after me at the Anarchist Book Fair where I was physically assaulted in 2013 because all of us, Jermaine, me, Pete, Julian Assange, we're exhausted. You know, we've been at this a long time. So they go after soft targets. They haven't got the courage to confront the people waging war in their names. And it's got nothing to do with skin tone. The last cop that arrested me was an elite counter-terrorist officer in London, and he was black, you know, and I assume he came from the Caribbean or Africa. He was colonized. I'm from Ireland. That's where my people come from. We were colonized for 800 years. We're still colonized in the north. Now, you've got a choice once you're colonized. Do you join the colonizer and become a house slave, or do you resist them? And I choose to follow Jesus and non-violently resist them. My grandfather resisted them violently, you know, and that's your choices. And it's got, now the black guy in this thing, I'm the white guy, here's the black guy. The black guy had the gun and he had the handcuffs. And he took me where I didn't want to go. I was a white guy, but I didn't have the gun, thank God. And I didn't have handcuffs. So it's not about black and white, you know, it really isn't. It's about colonized, colonizer, and then what your choices are. You know, I'm Irish. I'm from an Irish Republican family. I'm born in Brisbane where the Indigenous people were totally liquidated. They were close to total. And I've got a choice. Do I, you know, go upwardly mobile as a second wave migrant or whatever? Or do I join the resistance in solidarity with those Aboriginal people who don't get to live very long? Now, most of the guys I spent time in jail in Texas with, the Syrian guy, I assume is dead now. The Mexicans, I spent 500 Mexicans and 50 of us weren't. I assume a lot of them are dead because the second biggest mortality rate to Syria is the Mexican drug border war with the United States, you know. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've had a pretty easy hand. You know, if I was giving this speech in Guatemala, I'd be disappeared and tortured, you know. If I was giving this speech in Indonesia or the outer extremities of empire, it'd be high risk, you know. It's a little risky here, you know. I don't know whether I'm going to end up being tasered here or bashed or whatever. That's a possibility, but it'd be a probability in some other places, you know. So because we're privileged at the centre of empire in Australia, New Zealand, the States, Europe, there's much more of an obligation for us to act up because we whether we like it or not, we reap from the killing of children in Syria and Yemen. And we've got to decide, are we zombies? Do we want to be human? What's a human what response to the killing of children and the torture of Julian Assange? You know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, thanks, Karen. I'm just screen sharing a tweet from Joe Morrison. Karen O'Reilly preparing for a port to Wikibees. We're almost sorted. Have you seen that tweet?
No, but Joe's right next to me. So I can ask her, did you tweet something about this?
Yes, about you.
Yeah. No, it wasn't wrong. Yeah.
It's a very nice tweet.
It's a really nice tweet.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And yeah.
Oh, another one I'll screen share, Karen, is your 1991 interview that you tweeted out. So I just
Nice.
share that.
That was one from jail, was it? Or
Yes.
Yeah. I was off the drink then. I was running 3 miles every morning, and that was a period when I was young and beautiful. But it's a passing phase, so don't get too attached to it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you see the screen now, Joe? So this is your 1991.
Do you want Joe to sing another song if you want one? Oh, Joe. You do Tracy Chapman. That's more upbeat. Talking about revolution. Oh.
So this is a wonderful interview because it goes into your spiritual roots and your history of activism. Very considered and very spiritual, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's spiritual is about, I guess, the opposite to temporal, which is temporary, and it's a search for being authentically human. We believe we're all created in the image of God. You love God by loving other people and trying to stop principalities of power, governments, corporations murdering their children. And and it was an interesting interview because the guy had read about me in a magazine, and he owned a tennis club in Houston, and he drove 11 hours and he smuggled in this video camera he used for helping people improve their tennis serves. And then he later went to prison himself twice,
Really?
Ken Crowley. And and also he got a bourgeois running track in Houston, and he should be coming the other direction, but George Bush Sr. and 2 bodyguards, Secret Service. So as he approached, Ken dropped to his knees and said, "Pray for the children of Iraq." And Bush turned around and said, "And for the hostages." And he's thinking, what hostages? So it was probably a reference to Iran in the 70s or something. They call him Poppy Bush because of the heroin trade there during the Vietnam period. Now heroin's coming out of Afghanistan. I think there's a theme there. And at the moment, in front of the Ecuadorian embassy, you have scaffolding.
Yes.
We know what scaffolds are used for, but historically. But now this is unusual because I was a house painter with Phil Berrigan in Baltimore, Maryland. Their community is now based where the wire is set. And you do outdoors in the summer and you do indoors in the winter. Now, I asked the guy working on this job, I said, isn't it unusual to do a job outdoors in the winter because there's no light and it rains a lot and you got to stop work? And he nodded at me. Now, this scaffolding is here because they want to destroy the optic for US media coverage of Julian Assange or any other media coverage. Because when the Americans cross to London, they want to see Mary Poppins. They want to see things they're familiar with. So they've destroyed the optic. Now, I thought back, because I spent 6 weeks outside the Indonesian embassy in the lead up to the East Timor ballot in 99. And guess what they had around that embassy? They had scaffolding. So this is all to counter any media coverage of Julian's flight. And, these people are smart. Unlike the peace movement, they learn from their mistakes. They refine their techniques. And you had the Stop the War Coalition. They kept people marching up and down empty streets here when they could have gone to Northwood headquarters on the tube. Rob Green, who lives in Christchurch now, he was in the Northwood headquarters when they waged war on the Malvinas, the Falkland Islands. That's where they did their drone attacks from. If you put 5,000 people around that headquarters, you'd create a lot more tension than 1.5 million people walking down empty streets in central London. So you've got to really ask, what are the motives of the paid organisers, the well-paid organisers of the Stop the War Coalition, And you've got to form affinity groups and you've got to work with people you trust and don't be exploited by these people. And these are people who abandoned Julian Assange, So,
yes.
We've got to learn from our mistakes, And Joe's got another song. It's a bit more upbeat.
Yeah.
And
what is it, Joe?
Tracy Chapman, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you know they're talking about a revolution sounds like a whisper? Don't you know they're talking about a revolution sounds like a whisper? While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying in the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution? Sounds like a whisper. Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Don't you know you better run, 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 run. Oh, I said you better run, 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 run. Because finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, while they're standing in the welfare lines, crying on the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution? Sounds like a whisper. And finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, whoa, no. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, whoa, no. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, no.
Okay, we're going to hear next from Hungarian Sylvie. She's a bit shy, but just say a few words, Sylvia.
Hello, good evening. Right here by the embassy, where Julian is obviously with us somewhere inside the doors, the windows. Well, anyone who can support, just make some noise, make some words. Yeah, do what you can, where you can. Yeah, stay with him, stay with us.
Say something in Hungarian.
No.
Go on.
Good evening, free Julian.
Say something in Hungarian. Go on. We're all exposed. Go.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, she's a bit shy about her own language, but my father can speak fluent Irish. Now I need to put these earpieces back in. So one Irish saying is "Chucky-ala," which is "our time will come." And so yeah, can you hear me still? Is that plugged in?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, I can hear you, Kieran. And thanks very much, Joe, and thanks very much, Sylvie.
Right.
And isn't it just
So just on that point about language, because Sylvie seems very shy about hers tonight, but you know, radical Christians believe what happened at Pentecost was people spoke their own indigenous language, not the imperial language of Latin. Nothing mystical about Latin; it was an imperial language, as French and English and Chinese and will be. So what happened at Pentecost was the message was so universal to love each other that people understood across a linguistically divide, you know. So it's great. I'm trying to learn a bit of Irish, and it's good to learn. You know, obviously New Zealand people are more fluent in the Maori, and then Australians are like this, the Prime Minister of Australia can't even, you know, tokenistically say hello or good morning in any Aboriginal language, and that's outrageous, you know.
Yes, it's coming back. Are you guys? Can you stay for like the 3 hours? Or because I'm very conscious.
I'm not going anywhere till the Pope turns up on his Popemobile and takes Julian Assange away, or that. Yeah, even the Anglicans cheering that one, and or they step over my body to get him. Okay, so that's my plan.
I'm just loving hearing from the embassy, and isn't it just so important that anyone can make a difference by turning up at the embassy? If you're in London, that's such a good way of helping Julian, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a couple of groups who are here. Like we're a kind of a closed group in the sense lots of people drop in and we chat. I've had so much history of infiltration. In Brisbane, we used to have our anarchist meetings with Dan Van Blarkham, who was a special branch asset at his printing press for about 5 years. And then in Liverpool, we were infiltrated by a former member of 14 Company, went under the name Alan Fossey. He was working for a private intelligence company that was being paid for by British Aerospace. And then also at the London Catholic Worker, we were infiltrated. And who else? A friend, Carmela, sadly committed suicide. She was an Australian federal police officer, infiltrated Nanda Marga in the 80s, and then joined them. Was actually, and then later sadly killed herself. So, you know, and the North of Ireland and the Republican movement was so riddled by British assets at the end. Scappaticci is worth looking up. That we are cautious. So we have 10 people in our affinity group. It's called the Camden Catholic Worker, but as I said, we don't all live in Camden. We're not all Catholics. We're not all workers.
Just to say, 3% left on phone.
Okay, there's only 3%. There should be another battery backup here.
Africa.
That's the Saudi girl. I'm from Ireland. That's where my people come from. We were colonised for 800 years. We're still colonised in the north. Now, you've got a choice once you're colonised. Do you join the coloniser and become a house slave?
Yeah, this was okay. That's it. That's mainly what I was worried about, that you would lose battery. So
we've got a backup battery, but we haven't got a torch. We're desperately looking for it, and if we drop off, we'll come back on. Yeah.
Yeah, but, I'll take the opportunity to talk to Jose from Ecuador, and then hopefully come back to you. So thanks for.
No worries. I'll have a look for it. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yes.
You can listen in there. I'll look for it.
So I'll mute you for the moment, Kieran, or if you do you know how to mute yourself? There's a mute button if you can mute yourself, because if I mute you, I'm a little bit worried that I won't remember to come back on.
Is that to us, Kieran?
Yes.
Yeah. So you want to
Can you see a mute button?
No, it just says recording at the top. Let me press something at the bottom there. See if
Bottom left-hand corner.
No, it's not it.
Well, you got it. Thanks. So that's been wonderful, and hopefully they can stick around, and we'll talk some more. I'll always give, I think, a lot of priority to the people outside the embassy guarding Julian. So that's why, you know, they've been talking for so long and singing songs, and I really enjoyed that segment, and I can't really think of anything better that a wiki piece could be doing than having a report live from right outside where Julian is, from the vigilists who guard 24/7 Julian Assange, getting into the London winter, sometimes below freezing, sometimes just above freezing, and you know, rain, just freezing rain. So, but also wonderful is to have Jose here from Ecuador. Ecuador is the embassy where Julian is, and the Ecuadorian people and the former Ecuadorian president were wonderful to Julian and saved him when the US and the strongest powers of the world were trying to get him. But now they have a new president who's called Lenin Moreno. So Jose.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. So sorry for the long wait.
That's fine.
But very, very pleased to have you on again, reporting from the rapidly changing situation in Ecuador.
Yes, as you know, we still don't know who is going to be the new ambassador at the Ecuador embassy in London.
Yes.
I was surprised. I am surprised that he hasn't, named someone to go over there as an ambassador, and it's kind of strange, to have an embassy without an ambassador. I don't understand. Something is going on there for sure. because
Yes, all the scaffolding's going. Jose, did you know that the embassy changed ownership earlier this year?
I am not surprised, and I was waiting for that move.
In February, if I remember correctly, the embassy was bought for £100,000, which doesn't sound like very much. Free lease was bought for £100,000 by, I think, a rich, maybe even royalty with the United Arab Emirates. And certainly someone very, very wealthy billionaire, I think, from the United Arab Emirates. If I'm remembering correctly, I saw it in a tweet, bought the embassy in February of this year. I'll try and find that tweet. I can't do it now. Yeah, so they have the scaffolding at the outside of it, of course. So there's a lot going on, and they're trying to get rid of him one way or another, aren't they?
Yes. Well, because you see, how could you evict a person from a building? Either a new owner, or a new lease, or a reconstruction permit, where you have to empty the whole building due to reconstruction. So those are three possibilities, that should be expected.
Yes.
By us. So the easiest one is just any of those three.
Yes.
They say, we are going to rebuild the building and you have to live, and we'll give you 3-4 months to vacate the space.
Yes.
And so I don't know what we would do in a situation like that, where he would have to leave the embassy.
Yes.
That's when I saw the scaffolds, that's what I thought first, maybe a reconstruction permit or something like that.
Yes.
So that's why I had asked someone in London to go to the building department in London and find out the permit, what kind of building permit they have for putting those scaffolds there, because they do need a building permit for that in the city of London. So, so it should say, the reason why they have it there. So, in the Ecuador news, the taxi drivers strike was averted. It probably was because they were threatened, the leaders, or they were just bought out,
Yes.
And the students did a protest, and they were met by the police, and the police arrested some students, and we are waiting for, I think, jail Vice President Glass could die any moment.
Yes.
Yes, he could die any moment now. Any moment now, because his situation is really bad. His medical situation, and even the government. We have in Ecuador a special court which is called People's Court, and they did a medical examination on him and his conditions, and they recommended to change Glass to another jail where he's going to be guaranteed all the human rights that he's guaranteed by Constitution.
Is this very recent?
Yes, there is an order by that court, but the government. Yes, and the government is doing nothing. They are just taking their time,
When was the order, Jose?
I think it was around 4 days ago.
4 days ago.
4 days ago. I have the copy of the.
Yes.
So so the government has that judicial order, and they haven't moved. Also, yes, also Glass filed for a habeas corpus in the city where the jail is, and the court has not moved at all, has not made any pronouncement from the court, nothing. They're just sleeping on the paper, you know.
Yes.
And you know, you don't need to be, a mathematician to add 1 + 1 is 2, you know. They're
Yes.
just waiting for him to die, you know, because
Yes. Jose,
yeah. Yes.
We do it every time, but we tend to assume that some of the people watching will be new. So
I understand.
Could you go right from the start and give some background on Vice President Glass, and also on even go back to Lenin Moreno and Rafael Correa and the situation with Julian Assange? Could you give a very basic introduction again?
Sure. Well, you know, Lenin Moreno was the vice president for Rafael Correa for 10 years.
Yes.
And then he went to Geneva to work for the handicapped. They had a program there. And then in 2017, he went as a candidate for president. Lenin Moreno was a candidate for president, and Jorge Glass was a candidate for vice president. So Lenin and Glass were together on the elections. So they won the elections. And just a few months after Lenin became president.
Okay, that's fine. I can sit this side. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sorry, yes.
So as soon as Lenin became president, just a few months later, he sent to jail Glass. And
because
he
Glass
went to jail to a jail in Quito that was close to his family and his lawyers. And about a month ago, more than a month ago, he was sent to a high security prison for no reason.
But the reason he was put in jail,
the
reason he was put in jail, what was the reason he was put in jail?
We still don't know why. They made an accusation that was not even in the books, because they said Glass, you are accused of illegal association, but according to the to such law. But that law that they cited on the sentence did not exist anymore. And the illegal association was never proven. I mean, there was nothing, no proof, nothing. He was just the one-page sentence, which is ridiculous for a high court, is so, so unthinkable that you sentence a guy for the vice president, elected vice president of a country.
Yes.
Just with one page.
Yes.
It's so amazing, So, it reminds you of the protocol. The protocol is only what, 1 page or and a half?
Yes.
And they sentence, because that's basically what the protocol was for Assange. It was basically a jail sentence, with including torture for every day, So So that's what we have now. This president is so it's so concentrated on doing his plan.
Yes. So what was the real reason, do you think? That it doesn't make any sense, the reason they gave. What was the real reason, do you think, that he was put in jail?
Well, Lenin Glass, Vice President Glass, was on his way because he, just a month after they started the presidential office, Glass sent a letter to Vice President, complaining why he was doing all these changes
Yes.
that were never talked about on the campaign or between them. Glass sent a letter to, when he was vice president, he sent a letter to Lenin complaining, hey, what's happening? What are you doing?
Was it a public
why,
letter?
yeah, why are you doing all this, taking the country to the right? And so that's after that, Lenin Moreno sent the vice president to jail. So now, he has a beautiful family. He's an electronic engineer, and he's responsible for the modernization of Ecuador. And
Hydroelectric
now,
power, wasn't it?
right, yes. So now, so Glass was sentenced in around November.
Yes.
And during the soccer final of Ecuador, when everybody was
yes.
yeah, when everybody was distracted with the game.
Yes.
So Lenin, so that's these sorts of things.
Yes, and as I understand it, Jose, he was in a local prison, and then Moreno moved him to a worse prison in the south of Ecuador.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes,
And
south of Quito.
south of Quito, yes.
Yes.
And at that stage, or around that stage, just after he started doing a hunger strike.
Yes, he did. Yeah. For example, the jail where the cell where Glass is close to a trash dump of the prison, so the smell there is terrible. All these things, and for example, the report that the People's Court issued a few days ago, it says very clearly that there is a few contagious diseases at the prison.
Wow.
So he has an immune deficiency in his body.
Oh.
So he is there. So I'm pretty sure they sent him to jail, to die there.
To kill him, yes.
Oh yeah.
And so, and he's on a hunger strike, so he's going to be much weaker, and he's close to death. What I'm going to do, Jose, is I'm going to screen share your Twitter account, because it's a wonderful account that I recommend. I recommend people follow. So this is your account, Jose.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're watching it. It's SIGUEM and then Ecuador at the end. And so I recommend to everyone, if you're interested in Ecuador, follow this account, and I'll show some of the recent tweets you've done. This is the mother. Can you see this photo as well, Jose?
Yes, that's Glass' mother and Rafael Correa.
This is Rafael Correa, who is the former president of Ecuador, very popular in Ecuador, and he's the one who saved Julian Assange, and he's the one who gave asylum to Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy of London when Julian Assange could have been extradited to the US to face a life in prison, torture, terrible things. And Rafael Correa is now in Belgium. So this photo is probably taken in Belgium, do you think, Jose?
Yes, in Belgium, about 3 days ago.
About 3 days ago.
Yeah.
We've already retweeted that. So this is another one on Vice President Glass.
Yes.
This is from 29th, so again 3 days ago, I think. The Ecuador Defense Corps issued a medical report. Oh yes, so that's what. Yes, it was 3 days ago.
But that's the government response to the recommendation of the People's Court.
Was a communication?
Yes, the government is saying there, well, okay, we are ordering Glass to be taken to the hospital, but he will remain in the same jail, you see. So the catch there is that they want to keep him in this high security jail, where he's going to die either by a contagious disease or, you know, being killed by one of those criminals that are jailed there.
But his hunger strike, he must be very close to death. You've reported previously that he was having heart issues.
Yes, he has irregular heartbeats. He cannot stand anymore. He cannot stand up anymore.
Wow.
And you know, these hunger strikes, when, you know, he's going to have some damage in one of the organs for sure, you know.
Yes, if he lives. Yes.
Yeah, because you cannot, you know, do a hunger strike for so many days and come out without any, you know, organ damage.
Yes.
Because organs damaged because, you know, the lack of, you know, of nutrients.
Yes, and also dehydration, because you said that he wasn't even accepting water.
Yes.
So they must be injecting brine solution into his veins or something, because he would be dead by now, I would say, because he's been, that report that he was not taking water, that's what, a week and a half old or something like that. How long?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, Bobby Sands, I think Bobby Sands lasted like 30 or so days on hunger strike.
That's right. Famous Irish Catholic prisoner.
Right. I think there were two more Irish guys who, I think one of them lasted for 41 days.
Yes.
On a hunger strike.
Yes.
So, you know, remember that Bobby Sands, he died from a heart attack. So you know, so Glass is already having problems with his heart. So probably he will have a heart attack, you know.
Yes, your organs keep on shutting down. So this is probably what, day 42, is it? Or something like that?
Which
day 42 of
42,
the...
Day 42, yes.
So again, I remember I share your YouTube streaming. So this is a hugely dramatic situation that the vice president of Ecuador is in prison on a hunger strike and very close to death. This is from 18 hours ago. You posted that 41 days without.
That was yesterday.
On hunger strike, yes. So today's today 42. This is a photo of him, right? Glass.
Yeah. Day 42. That's for day 42.
Yeah, and can you see, it's a very nice photo of him smiling and hugging someone.
Yes, when he used to go out, you know, in the country.
It's so sad. And it's not widely known in Ecuador that this is going on. Isn't that what you said?
Yes. The newspapers and the TV, nothing. They're not showing anything about Glass at all. It's as if he didn't exist.
Yes.
And the same with Assange. You know, here in Ecuador, no mention whatsoever of Julian Assange's condition at the embassy.
Yes.
Nothing. You know, as if, you know, they are blockade. They are doing a media blockade to, you know, Glass and Assange.
Yes. So you've talked on previous WikiBees about how terrible the media is in Ecuador.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, you know, remember the campaign, the media campaign they did to create a law to have in Ecuador everybody be able to wear a gun. Well, the media campaign didn't work for them because we pushed them back as hard as they did and harder. So now I just read on the papers that they are making commissions, you know. So the media gives them all this cover, you know, the safety commissions and things like that. They haven't given up yet on the guns.
So these safety commissions. So the situation is that the media tend to work for the government, and the government is strongly influenced by the US and the CIA in particular, is your understanding?
Yes. Well, you know, remember the article by the Guardian that they made that story of that Manafort visited Assange.
Yes.
But you see, 2 weeks before that article, those two guys, those two reporters, one of the reporters for the Guardian, were here in Quito talking to the guy who's you know, an informant for the CIA. So you know, it's no coincidence.
Yes.
So they, you know, they prepared that article. You know, that's why they met here in Quito. I'm sure they prepared that article, you know, at that time, and they just waited for the good moment to you know, to release it.
Yes, yes, we were going to talk about that later. But let's see, I can talk about that. So the background to that is that there was a fake news article posted by The Guardian that tried to connect Julian Assange to President Trump as a way of smearing him and associating him with Russia as well, I think. So there's that's big news. That's big news in the US as well. So let's see. I'll try and I will show that article. I'll do another screen share. Because it does have an Ecuadorian connection as well, Jose. So you can comment on it. So let's see if I can. I've got some tweets, but not really in order. So this is, if you can see this is a tweet from WikiLeaks.
Right.
WikiLeaks launches a legal fund to sue The Guardian for publishing an entirely fabricated story. And the name of the story is Manafort held secret talks with Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy. And Manafort works for Donald Trump. He was, I believe, the campaign manager for Donald Trump. So they're trying to connect Julian Assange with Donald Trump in a less, say there is goings on behind the scenes between Julian Assange and Donald Trump, which there haven't been. And this story fell flat on its face, and it spread all over the world today. It's time The Guardian paid a price for fabricating news. So WikiLeaks is suing them for that. So let's see. The story is complete rubbish, and the Washington Times, I believe, examines the passport of this person who was supposed. The Guardian claimed that he met Julian Assange in 2013 and 2015 and 2016. And this guy didn't even visit the UK in 2013 or 2015. So the story is just completely ridiculous. This is the original report from the Washington Times. His passports show he wasn't even in the country, so how could he have met Julian Assange? Another one from WikiLeaks, they're going to sue fake news producers like The Guardian, because Julian Assange gets such bad press from the corporate media who, you know, smear him all the time. And that's that story from, here's another report. This is a news report that they're suing him. That Guardian story is actually, it says it's from Quito.
Yes.
Instead of,
that story was planned here with the with that Ecuadorian CIA guy, and you know you see they have a whole industry, media industry, international media industry to discredit people. You know,
yes.
so and I think I saw the 3 days ago the BBC was still banging that something like that, but they were making other theories, and they put charts with graphs and everything, connecting Manafort with Assange,
Yeah.
and they are so that's what I said. This is no coincidence that this article appeared, and the whole media industry, international media industry, grabbed it and made it explode, in the world. So what happens to a lot of people who don't read, the articles after that? Because if you realize, for example, the discovery that the Guardian lied, because they lied, they made
Yes.
up that story. That part does not explode in the international media, so very few people see it. You see,
Yes. So that's,
it doesn't explode. Yeah, it just stays, within the Guardian, and that's it. Because the international media didn't make it explode too. So most of the people know the first fake story, and that type of story stays with them because they don't know that that it was a lie. Because
yes.
because most people depend on mass media. So if the mass media doesn't make a mass international media retraction to a fake news, the fake news stays as truth.
Yes. So it's a very deliberate ploy that they
Yes.
they do a totally false and ridiculous story, easily disproven, but
Yes.
everybody hears the story and they don't hear that it's disproved. So they smeared Julian Assange, and all that he can do about it is sue them, which is very difficult.
Right. Exactly. But you see, the suit, for example, did not become a media bomb, international media bomb.
Yes.
Maybe maybe one or two papers published it, but it was a small report. So that's what I said. The fake story still remains in a lot of people.
Yes.
So it's so this they don't you think that this fake story is preceding something that they planned maybe for Assange?
Well, some people were speculating that it happened at about the same time as this news came out that there was a sealed indictment against Julian Assange
Exactly.
from the
Yes.
United States.
Right.
Because for years, Julian's been inside the embassy saying, we know there's a sealed indictment from the United States. They want to send me to prison for a long time, even the death penalty maybe. And the United States wasn't saying anything. Actually, WikiLeaks proved that there was a sealed indictment because WikiLeaks leaked some files from a security firm called Stratfor, which is closely connected to CIA. And the Stratfor emails showed them talking about the sealed indictment for Julian Assange, speaking of it as a fact. And then what happened a couple of weeks ago was that it was supposed to be an accident that somebody accidentally revealed in court, in a court paper, that there was a sealed indictment. And then at the same time, straight after that, this story came out from The Guardian. So I don't know, they're strange. You have to sort of read the tea leaves, I suppose, and it's almost not worth guessing, but it's another one of these crazy developments that are going on with Julian Assange. So everything quickening. You know, there's a lot of events happening around Julian Assange.
Right, exactly. Too many things at the same time. You know.
Yes.
That's why I was suspecting that maybe they have a plan of something. You know. We don't know what it is. But it's obvious that the Mueller investigation is also having an effect, you know, on all these things that around Assange, because as you know, most people don't know that, for example, Mueller has no evidence whatsoever about you know, anything about Assange, against Assange.
Yes.
Because
and remind people who Mueller is.
Yes, he is the special counselor appointed by Congress to investigate the Russiagate, the supposedly, interference by Russia on the United States elections. But they have not proved anything so far.
Yes.
Nothing. No.
So this is something, there's no evidence, but it's almost like a cover-up or an excuse for why Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump.
Right.
And the connection with Julian Assange, there's no connection with Julian Assange, but they're trying to make a connection with Julian Assange.
Exactly. They are trying to force a connection, you know. But you know, remember remember the trials, the trials of Guantanamo Bay. They had all these poor people that they sequestered in Asia and Europe, and they were blindfolded, drugged, and taken to Guantanamo Bay, and most of them were returned to their countries, with nothing, but they were at a court, military court in Guantanamo Bay, and my question is, that type of court was for what? Because they didn't, convict anybody. Yes. And so, Assange should. I was listening to what the person was saying, at the embassy. That's what I'm trying to say. If they are going to just, use just say, just because you are Assange, you are convicted. Basically, that's what it's going to boil down to, because otherwise, the laws that they are going to try to push on him that he violated, they cannot be applied to him. But if you are in jail, you are at the mercy of the judge.
Yes. Just
like Glass was. That's another Guantanamo Bay type of judgment.
Yes.
They judged him because he was Glass. Because the judge had the orders from Lenin to put him in jail. So no judicial review, nothing. So they just sent him to jail. So Assange should expect the same treatment, and no justice at all. No justice at all.
Yes. So it's another example of what you've talked about in general, that Ecuador's new president doesn't obey the law and he's above the law.
Yes. And and you know that the biggest ridiculous thing is that the vice president that Lenin chose to replace Glass is being investigated by corruption. So you know.
So he put the first vice president in jail, replaced with a new vice president.
Yes.
And
she is being investigated by corruption.
And she's being investigated for corruption.
Yes.
Wow.
So, but you know, they didn't send her to jail.
Yes, I'll actually, you've been doing some tweets on this. Again, it's good to follow your account, and I'll show the tweets, at least a couple of the tweets. So it's on screen share. National Assembly voted tonight to ask Vice President Vicuña?
Yes, Vicuña.
Sorry, to resign due to corruption charges. I'll press on this link to see if it looks good. Because you've done other, it's just an article. Because you've done other tweets with photos of Vice President Vicuña as well.
You see, here is the...
Here she is, right?
Right. Yes.
So this is a...
So here, right. So in that tweet, you know, what I'm saying there is that what the Constitution says, that in order to, you know, fire a vice president of a Republic of Ecuador, you need 2/3 of the votes in Congress, in the National Assembly. But before that, the Supreme Court, the Corte Constitucional, must first review the case and approve it so that it can go to the National Assembly.
Yes.
But Lenin Moreno fired all Supreme Court judges. So we have no Supreme Court judges to make that ruling, you know, to send her case to the National Assembly. So
you don't even have a Supreme Court at this stage.
Right. She cannot be fired unless only the National Assembly can fire her. Or if she resigns to her immunity as vice president, and then she submits to the laws of like any regular citizen. And she is not doing that. But you see, that's what Glass did. He resigned to his immunity as vice president that he got. Because as vice president, right. So you see, they tricked, Lenin tricked Glass. He told him, no, just submit it because we have justice in Ecuador. And you should trust our judicial system, that they will do justice to you. So that's what he did. Glass resigned to his immunity. Because he was tricked.
Oh, that's so sad.
Right. So little he know that was just a trick, a trap, you know. That was just a pressure, you know, they pressured him. If you have nothing to, they told him, if you have nothing to hide, yeah, just resign to the immunity. And, you know, the law is going to give you the, you know, declare you, you know, innocent.
Yes.
Because you are innocent. But that's not what they had other plans for him, you know. Their plans was to, you know, send him to jail so that they would do whatever they wanted.
Yes. I mean, Jose, this is really one example, yet another example of a general, the overall picture for Ecuador is that it's in free fall, because under the previous president, Rafael Correa, remember, who was shown in the photo with from Belgium, under Rafael Correa, Ecuador was a very well-functioning country, wasn't it? The courts worked well.
Yes.
The economy was good.
Yes.
The whole civil structure worked well. You talked about the vice president, the now vice. Oh, the one who's in jail, actually helped with the hydroelectric. So Ecuador became quite self-sufficient with renewable energy, didn't they?
Yes.
From, for
Yes.
example, hydroelectric power.
Right.
So was it like about 8 years that Rafael Correa was president?
Yeah.
So during that time, Ecuador made a lot of progress and became one of the strongest countries in Latin America as an economy.
Yes.
And they were completely independent. They kicked out the CIA from a military base there. So it's really heartbreaking that the country was so prosperous and functioning so well, and they also were successful in suing overseas oil company Chevron for massive pollution in Ecuador. And now all of that, just in a matter of what, 18 months or so,
Yeah. Right.
has fallen away.
Yes, all of it. In fact, you know, 2 days ago there was a newspaper article that Lenin Moreno is about to ask an emergency loan because because he has taken the country to to almost bankruptcy. So here's the thing: he's going to borrow money to pay the interest on borrowed money.
Is it with the IMF?
Right, exactly. Who else? It's big business for them because they live of interest,
And they control the country after they get.
Well, they control the world, really.
Yes, once the country becomes financially dependent on them,
right,
they're in big trouble. And just 18 months ago, this would have been inconceivable.
Exactly, inconceivable.
So it's a terrible situation. So in this Wikibees, I mean, we hear a lot from you in Ecuador, and it relates to Julian Assange because Julian Assange relies on this country that's now in free fall, and the president has described Julian Assange as a stone in his shoe.
Yes.
The new president wants to get rid of Julian Assange.
Yes.
And the United States would be very happy to grab him.
Yes.
So this is why it's an emergency for Julian Assange.
Oh yes, it is.
We don't know how long he's got. He's not secure. He's in an embassy with scaffolding, with a whole lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a crazy story. And anything else from Ecuador, Jose?
No, that will be all. I gotta go, but it was a pleasure to talk to you guys. And this is a labor of love that we are all doing because we do it, because of our we care about the humanity and we care about Assange and and Glass and all the injustices, And I would like to invite everybody to do their whatever they can to help Assange and
Yes, yes, and to everyone watching, if you're on Twitter, Jose is a wonderful person to follow on Twitter, and there are also photos of you doing holding up a banner, protesting what's going on in Ecuador, and also the banner has a Free Julian Assange banner on it, hasn't it? So
Yes.
So thanks so much, Jose, for
Okay.
what you're doing in very difficult circumstances.
Yes.
You can't even show your face because it's too dangerous.
Yeah, it's too dangerous. Yeah. So, well, I bid you all well and take care. And let's keep fighting. Please
Yes.
don't give up. Don't give up, people. All people who are hearing me, please don't give up. In fact, if you have friends, if you have anywhere you go, please, include more people to join the protest. That is very important.
Thanks so
So,
much, Jose.
okay, take care.
Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Hello,
Trying to
can you
get-
hear me?
Hi, Karen. Welcome back.
Yeah, we lost our backup battery, then we found it, then we lost the phone, but we found it, and we're back.
Cool. Your lighting's not quite as good as it was before.
No, we're collecting candles now. We're going pre-industrial. I'll go while the candles are being assembled. I'll go under a street lamp and see if that helps.
Cool.
And so these three buildings are owned by the royal family of Qatar, or Qatar, as they say in America. And this one I'm in front of was a Crown Court. And my boss in Ireland at a homeless shelter, my CV is basically work with the homeless, became homeless. But he was sentenced from this court in the 1970s as an anarchist squatter for resisting the police. And now it's elite apartments. So
we can't see much, Karen. We can only see one bright light.
You see me now?
No.
Okay, Joe's getting the candles, so it's just going to be my voice for a while, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Yep, she's lighting the candles. So we have a shrine here, as I mentioned before, also to the two journalists who were killed in a collateral murder. Footage Namir Noor Eldin and Sahid Chamar, and they were working for Reuters, and we really should know their names, because journalists, they should protect their own,
And that's the most famous story. I'm just giving basic background. That's the most famous story from WikiLeaks. Their most famous release is in 2010. They released it, I think.
So, it's very similar to the Ballabo Five, Greg Shackleton and the other four whose names I should know. I've met all their families. I'm pretty useless at names. I'm very good under police interrogation because I can't give anyone up. But, that Greg Shackleton wasn't honoured by Australian journalists. He was from Queensland, like Julian and myself. And when we invited his widow, Shirley Shackleton, on the 20th anniversary of his killing to Brisbane, that was the first time she was ever invited to Queensland since the killing of her husband. So that shows you how marginalised his memory was, and the movie Ballabo, the same people who did the film Underground on Julian, Tony LaPaglia, used to be a great goalkeeper until he was 25, then went to America and became an actor. He's in both films, and they're both worth seeing. I lent Julian my copy, and I still haven't got it back. But I'm sure he's pretty busy. But it's a great one to keep and circulate amongst friends and things,
I wasn't really familiar with it when you mentioned it, Kieran. Could you give a little bit more background on it?
About the Underground movie or the Ballabo movie?
Ballabo.
Okay, so what happened was basically the Portuguese Empire. Portugal had a dictator like Franco, and he was trying to hang on to his colonies in Africa and Angola. The footballer Ronaldo, his father was a conscript in the Angolan War.
Oh.
And this was in the 1960s, 70s, and the American army was being radicalized by the Black Panthers and others. And the same with the Portuguese military. And those conscripts returned and had a fairly non-violent revolution called the Carnation Revolution in Portugal.
Yes.
So one thing they did was they rapidly pulled out of all their colonies, including Timor-Leste or East Timor. East Timor was Catholic. East Timor is the most Catholic country in the world. It's 97% Catholic. West Timor is Protestant for some reason, and the rest of Indonesia is predominantly Muslim. And the Timorese have a kind of Catholic animism. Of course, West Papua are being colonized by Indonesia as well. But so just before the invasion, as Indonesian military forces were assembling, and this was at a very specific time in Australian history, because this is when Gough Whitlam, elected Prime Minister of Australia, was sacked by the Governor-General, the Queen's representative, with the help from Rupert Murdoch. Marshall Green, who was the ambassador, Marshall Green was previously in Santiago for the Chilean coup, was in Vietnam. And this is what bestowed Christopher Boyce, The Snowman, the Falcon. That's another movie. It's the David Bowie soundtrack. All these movies were great films, but you never see them. They're suppressed. I went into every DVD store when I was back home in Australia, could not find Underground.
Wow. And
the same with the only time I ever saw The Snowman and the Falcon was when I was in custody in Darwin. They had it on internal video in the jail. And so it's worth looking for. This Is Not America is the David Bowie soundtrack. And it's Sean Penn. And it's the guy who played James Bond, Tim Dalton. So these are big actors. Yes. And it's amazing what stories get suppressed and what gets celebrated, in this culture. And, like a film like The Crying Game that was nominated for an Oscar, a film by Warren Beatty called Reds, which was nominated for a series of Oscars. It's pretty impossible to find that available in any DVD store. So under Balibo, in October of 75, they went down to the border of East Timor, West Timor, to a small town called Balibo, and they filmed the Indonesian Navy amassing for the invasion. And they were murdered, and the guy who led that raiding party illegally into East Timor later became a minister in the Indonesian government. And what you had was you had Gerald Ford, I think, and Henry Kissinger in Jakarta, I'd say 3 days before they sanctioned the invasion of East Timor. So the Indonesian military, fascist, killed a third of the population. And Australian Catholics have to ask, why is the genocide of Catholics in the neighbouring country to Australia not a big issue in the 70s and 80s? Is it because they're not white? Maybe, possibly. If it had been happening to white Catholics, maybe the bishops would have got off their ass and done something. Jose Ramos Horta was banned from Australia, just like Peter Tatchell, who was born in Australia, is banned from returning, just like Julian Assange has not been reissued a passport after his one lapse earlier this year. I was here the day that, outside the embassy, the day that Australian bureaucrats came down from the Australian High Commission. That's the first time in 7 years that they made any physical contact with Julian. I confronted Alexander Downer outside of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting with two other friends as he strolled down the street. And I said, Mr. Downer, just a man I want to see, Australian citizen, you're not really doing your job. Australian citizen Julian Assange detained without charge. And he snidely turns around and goes, he's Ecuadorian now, Yeah, I'm Australian, I'm Irish, I'm a dual citizen, right? Julian Assange is an Australian and he's an Ecuadorian.
So that came from Downer.
That's why they're having difficulty. That came from Downer, who also is in bed with the Indonesian military. These pompous prats end up with gigs like ambassadorships after they finish their apprenticeship as Australian politicians. To be a politician in Australia, for a lot of them, is just a stepping stone to some international organisation. The joke used to be about Gareth Evans, who wanted to be the UN Attorney General. And there's film footage of him popping champagne corks with the Indonesian fascists flying over the Timor Sea to divide up the gas reserves. And the joke, you know, people used to call him Gareth Evans after Boutros Bar, whatever his name was.
Garley, yeah.
Who was the UN Secretary General at the time. Yeah. So these people, you know, whatever your ideology is, whether it be Catholic, Social Democratic, or Labour Party, Communist, anarchist, you've always got the element of corruption, you know.
Yes.
And you know, and it's very hard to co-opt Julian Assange or corrupt him or buy him off, and that's why they're scared of him. Jimmy Dore quoted Oscar Wilde recently. He said, Oscar Wilde, who was prosecuted by Carson, who created the North of Ireland statelet, sectarian statelet, he was the prosecutor in the Wilde case. And unfortunately, Oscar thought he was on stage instead of a courtroom and lost that case. But Oscar Wilde said, if you tell people the truth and don't make them laugh, they'll want to kill you, you know.
Right, yeah.
And the role of humour, and why I do a lot of it, is to decrease stress in social relationships, you know. So that's why you have like Carry On movies in British, because they're so repressed about sex. You have comedies like Carry On up the Kaiser or something like that. I know, up the Congo or whatever it was. So the role of humour is to decrease stress. Now, Australia is full of cynicism. It's full of cynicism about Julian Assange, but cynicism is as a cover for cowardice, you know, especially in relation to Julian. So they want lights. They want to see me. They can't see me. Yeah. Where's Joe? Over there. Okay. Trying to get some light on the subject, but yeah. So you know, people confuse being wise with being cynical. And like one guy walked by us last night, a rich guy, and goes, "Sad loser," you know, about Julian. And you know, I yelled after him, "You lost in Iraq, you lost in Afghanistan, you lost in the north of Ireland, and you'll lose here on Hands Crescent." You know, so you know, in terms of losing, are they winning in Iraq? Are they winning in Afghanistan? Are they winning in Ireland? I don't think so. You know,
I don't think it was ever their intent.
Yeah, so
Just
you know,
self-perpetuate the war and keep spending the money.
Yeah, if you attack someone who has no right of reply, you are a coward, you know? And it's like beating up someone who's bound and gagged, you know? And these American movies that celebrate, you know, the Bourne conspiracy people, you know, who celebrate American Nazis who assassinate people in their beds, you know? And Hollywood is churning that shit out, you know? And a film like that's easy to find in DVD store in Australia. What's hard to find is films like The Crying Game, like Snowman and the Falcon, like Underground, like Ballabo. You know, so it's not a coincidence, you know.
Yes.
It's sad, you know. So, but you meet good people like this Saudi corporate lawyer just took our battery to be charged, you know. A guy who, yeah, and then the other night a Kiwi chef dropped off, and then another night the guy turned up and it was a Tamil from Sri Lanka. They've suffered a lot, and he gave us free food. And then you had the little boy coming back with a 25p. You know, for Christians, we believe the kingdom of God is within you and present at play in the world, and you just got to tune in like radio frequency. And some days you get a really clear signal, and some days it's pretty fuzzy, but it's there. It's there in the child who turns around to give up what he thinks is a homeless person 25p. And it's there in like some of these Harrods security guards. Some of them take pleasure in harassing me. And some of them feel very guilty when they're ordered to do that. And some are refugees from wars, and some are veterans of those wars, you know. And they respect us. They don't understand why we're here, but initially, but they respect that we're here night after night after night through the night, you know. So, you know, during one shift a few weeks ago, one guy came by and I said, "Oh, I'm tidying up." He said, "No worries," and gave me a chocolate bar. Another night, some guy patted me on the shoulder and said, "Good to see you." You know, so, you know, you don't want to judge people at all. You want to learn about them and see why they do what they do, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people have been abused as children and act out. And, you know, I've spent years in jail with people who are in for killing people. And
have done terrible things, and some are psychopaths. There's always a certain amount of psychopaths, but some of them have just been abused from the get-go, so...
Yes.
So, leave candle. You want me to hold it? Can you pass me a candle? And I'll hold the candle. So, you're still having no visual there, yeah?
No, nothing. Just occasional flashes of light is all.
Okay. I think Sylvie's going to get a torch now, and we'll go back to where we were before, yeah.
That is fine. No, your voice is good. How far are you from Harrods?
Okay. We got a whole lot. Sit down. Okay. I'm now away from my whiskey and beer.
I just wanted to stop in and say hi and bye. I'm just off work, but doing great stuff with WikiBees.
Yes.
And I'll catch you all at the other stream. I'll keep watching and here for technical bits, but it'll get a bit noisy here shortly. So awesome to see you, Sharon, and Bruce. Carry on. Catch you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much, Joe.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Yeah,
where I'm sitting now is 30 meters from Harrods, and I'm sitting in front of the Ecuadorian embassy.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the Knightsbridge tube exit, puts you right in front of Harrods, and then it's a 30-meter walk to where Julian Assange has been incarcerated for 6 years.
Oh.
And when you consider, as I said before, 1.5 million people marched against the war that he's in trouble for exposing, not many people have made that walk,
Yes. So
okay, we're juggling a can of Guinness, a phone, and a candle here. Right, we've done it. Okay. It's all good in the hood.
Yeah.
And we've got some light. Can you see me now?
Yeah, now I can see. It's Can I'm just curious, so I can't help it. There was a photo of the Harrods chefs at the embassy.
Oh, yeah.
People can't figure out if it's a Photoshop or if it's true.
Okay, I'll ask Phil because she was there in that photo. The chefs. Is it Photoshop or the truth?
Do I have to say that?
Yeah, you have to. Come on, let me try. Let me find out.
So, good evening.
Yes.
So, what happened with Harrods? What was it? The chefs, right?
They're exploding Christmas.
Exactly. So
Don't say that.
Exploding Christmas. All right. So obviously, Christmas happened. Christmas opened in Harrods.
Yes.
There was.
I want to see you.
All right. Well, they obviously they thought it was a good opening for Harrods people or Harrods customers. They started with like carols, Christmas trees, and all that stuff. And they brought all these chefs just giving out sausage rolls and all this, like food just for them. And then obviously, because there's Harrods loading bays right next to the embassy, they were coming and going from that entrance.
Yes.
And then it was quite good to see them right next to Julian's window. So, yeah, I took a picture. And it's part of solidarity.
So, Sylvie, it's an amazing picture. I'm trying to find it as I speak to you. So I'll see if I can find it on Twitter. So that's you that posted the photo on Twitter.
Yep, that was me.
Great. I just, if you indulge me, I try to find it on Twitter. So what's your Twitter handle?
Fiction.
Yes, let's see.
Under fiction. And yeah, so I took that, and then because obviously that was a time when Julian was denied all the visitors. I mean, he has still been denied all that. No food, no phone calls, nothing. And then obviously they were like giving out food for free for all these Harrods customers.
Yes.
Well, that was kind of significant in that way. Well, yeah, exactly. So it's sad. It's very sad what's going on with Julian. And then there's just like food going out just for like people and stuff.
So So they came over to the embassy with an intent to do something for Julian?
They knew about that, but not really. So, well, they lined up there, and then I just took the picture. And it was kind of symbolic, so that's what I meant by that.
Oh, I see. So they lined up. They were handing out
Yeah.
food to you because they were handing it out to everyone as part of their Christmas
Yeah.
celebrations.
Yes, yeah, that was one.
Okay, and you told them about Julian, obviously.
Yeah, they knew about that. So we had all the banners and everything. They knew, and they kind of know us already by now. They know why we're here, and then they are quite sympathetic. Some of them are nice, and yeah, it was nice and friendly. They offered us some sausage rolls. That was kind.
Oh, yeah, very cool. That was a very cool. I mean, the photo was so. It's a beautiful photo. I'm trying to find. I can't even get your. I can. Can you remember what your handle is in letters? Is it S1 or something?
13 SYLV 13.
13 SYL. Yes, there you are. But I'm not. Let's see. So yes, I've got your.
It was quite a few weeks back.
Yes.
2 or 3 weeks back. But yeah, I think it was perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a beautiful photo. If I just try and flick through, it will take too long, won't it? Is there a word that you use or anything? How can I find it?
Well, I mainly use Free Assange or Free Julian. If you go to media on the Twitter handle, just go to media, and then you just scroll down, you see pictures and videos. There.
Oh yes, photos and video. Yeah.
Currently, we see Harrods there, and just people and zombies walking by.
I'm actually I'll start the screen share now, Sylvie, and you might be able to see it as well.
Okay.
So this is all of your media tweets. November 27. It's still a way back. Your Twitter feed is very interesting as well. So I would also recommend anyone to join up. There's a security camera being taken down. This is I haven't. This is excellent. This is showing some of the candles. Is it BP Honeybee who does the candles mainly, or a lot of you do them? Is that Karen there? I'm just looking at I'm not sure if you can see the same video. There's Karen reading something, but I'm trying to get back to the. Let's see, we're November the 17th. So this is only media photos. There it is. Yes. So hopefully people can see that. I don't know if you can see that on your screen as well. Yeah, I should have just searched for Harrod and chefs. Yeah, Harrod chefs came to Ecuadorian embassy to free Julian Assange. So this was a photo that people were wondering if it was real or if it was a Photoshop, because it almost looks surreal with the lights in the background and the big lineup. And who is that in the photo? So you took the photo, Sylvie? Sylvia, are you still there? So I'm not sure if we're getting sound, but I'll go to the photo. Oh, okay. Oh, too bad. So there's the photo. Yes. I feel bad now thinking it might have been a Photoshop, because it's just so incredible. I mean, it's taken at night, but with the lights in the background, and then I'd like to know who the lady is. If Sylvie took the photo, I mean, who the lady is. So oh yes, we should find out exactly where it's taken, because I was wondering if it was taken at the embassy itself. Oh, is that where the lights are coming from? Oh, okay. Okay. They're still showing as on the screen. So they're still in the chat. So I don't know if we'll get them back. Anyway, while we're here and while they're trying to get back, I'll do another screen share of this is Emmy Butlin, who was on the last WikiBees. Very nice conversation, and who's been a vigilist since Julian was in the embassy, and so she was on the last one, and I said, please tag WikiBees if there are any events that you want to publicize. And so this is a tweet from Emmy, longtime vigilist, advertising, as Kieran did also, I think. Please join our solidarity vigil in support of WikiLeaks Julian Assange outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 3 to 5 p.m. So if you're in London and you want to help Julian Assange, I mean, there's hardly anything better that you can do than visit the embassy, and they're there 24/7. These vigilists. So anytime you're passing through, just call in and say hello. And also, the physical presence outside the embassy sends a powerful message. If there are photos with lots of people outside the embassy, that really helps Julian Assange. And really, it's so direct. Oh, I'm getting a message from BB Honeybee that Kieran's phone has died, and BB Honeybee wants to come on. So I have to send her the link. So excuse me for just a minute. I'm getting the link to BB Honeybee, who's another one of the vigilists. I think she's the one who does the beautiful candle displays. Yes. Oh, I'm actually sharing this. Sorry. This is nothing. Apologies if that was a breach of confidence, BB Honeybee. I didn't realize that I was sharing the Zoom, but that was me going into. I also shared a little bit of the mods channel, so sorry for the breach of. It's a very open. What I was showing there was the Discord, which we all use to help us in our work. So Unity4J works from the Discord platform, which is a gamers platform, but it's very useful for doing work for Unity4J. This is where we organize the WikiBees and all of the live streams, etc. I'll actually go back to a public area since I'm talking about it, I'll screen share it and show you. Because everybody is invited to join the Discord, the Unity for J Discord servers. We have about 3,000 people. And this is what it looks like. This is the Twitter channel. So if you join Discord by typing unityforj.com/Discord, whether it's the letter 4, you can join this Discord very quickly, which is where we do our work from. And I think we probably, every Wikibase, we should show the Discord server every now and then. So this is, there are 3 columns. The middle column, the main column, is which channel we are. So we're organized by our areas of expertise and areas we're interested in. This happens to be the Twitter channel. And on the left, all the different channels. So Twitter is just one of a whole lot of channels for social media. I'll click on all platforms. These are important media messages that should be broadcast to all social media. So this is, for example, is a Susie Dawson. That's the founder of Unity for J, is advertising that. I'll open the link. So if you're on the Discord server, you can get access to all of the materials that relate to Julian Assange. And as you can see here, this is Peter Lavelle, who's been on Unity for J vigils, and Joe Lauria, who's organizing the vigils now, along with Susie, having a discussion on Julian Assange. So this is an important that's an important sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. I'm trying to promote BB Honeybee has come on to the Zoom, and I have to promote them to panelists. Hello, hi BB Honeybee. You're muted at the moment, BB Honeybee. You're muted. So go to the bottom. Oh, cool. Ah, good to see you.
Yes.
we were just talking about the candle displays, and aren't you the one who does the candle displays?
That's right.
Yeah, they're so beautiful.
Thank you. It's the message that counts, not the candles itself.
Yes.
Listen, Bruce, I've only stepped in because Kieran's battery died, okay? So
yes.
I am not so keen to talk on the stream so much. I think my candle messages speak for themselves. So I'm just going to hand you over to Kieran, all right?
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, nice to see you.
All right.
Okay, and the candles.
Actually, we top 5 at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Kieran.
Hi. Okay.
Now
Now I'm further away from my Guinness, but okay. Okay. You hold that. I'll hold this. Got my ears happening here.
You're actually this camera is working much better in low light, Kieran. So it's a better picture of you now.
Okay. This camera is working better and we don't need light.
Oh,
apparently.
okay.
But okay, you're fine with the visual, yeah?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you can almost is that the?
Let me get an adapter.
Okay, it's all good. It's all good.
Is that even the embassy in the background, Kieran?
Yeah, I'll take you for a bit of a walk, huh? Since you got a better visual.
Yeah, we can see something.
So this is Harrods.
Can you see
Okay.
Harrods?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Colombian embassy we're walking next to. This is all the scaffolding.
All the scaffolding, yes.
Visual for media. So this, we suspect that this was purposely done during the winter, which is unusual for house painting or embassy painting. So there's Harrods. This is Hans Crescent.
Yes.
This is the entrance to the embassy. Just walking up the stairs, and that's a concierge desk there.
Yes.
And you just take an immediate left to the Ecuadorian embassy and immediate right to the Colombian embassy.
Yes.
So the embassy is only 5 rooms on that floor. The scaffolding is alarmed. This is Sabine's light candle.
Beautiful.
This is the alley that the Harrods head of security told us was their private property. And in good Reclaim the Streets tradition, we challenged that. And we prayed in this alley. We played football in this alley. We performed music under Julian's window. Number 3, Hans Crescent. These cameras were installed last week. We suspect not enemy in. And this new one, they're watching us as we watch them. This was installed last week. The escalation of Harrod's harassment of me kind of heightened this week. These are 2 huge doors here. So at about 5 in the morning, trucks start to line up outside on Hans Crescent, and they come in this way and out this way. And there's 10 loading bays downstairs.
So
this used to be a police station, a watch house here, and
so
for
Kieran,
3 years up here they had a cop stationed there for 3 years. And this door is where John Cusack and I walked through, and Ben Griffin, and there were 4 cops beyond that door. So international territory is only the subsections of the building. So there were cops in the building as well as outside. And this is where Julian's room was for many years. So I was in there with Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys, brought him in there. And they'd made a big incident last week about this candle here. And they waited till I went to the bathroom, and there was a pincer movement of both Harrods security and the solitary, possibly, or body security within the embassy came out to harass a young man who stayed the night at the vigil. So when I came back, I've always hated bullying at school. 2 things I hated about school was peer group pressure and bullying. So I kind of unleashed a very Old Testament prophetic diatribe on what they were doing with Julian and what the British have been doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so the other harassment comes from armed police. Which can be building up here. We suspect is me. And also these open windows there. There's a camera trained on the entrance to the building, which has photographs have appeared on the internet, taken by this camera at the top of the building across the street here.
Posted by who?
But also during the vigil in summer. Maybe Sylvie, could you explain the cameras? Sylvie will explain where were the cameras positioned in the summer.
So if you see that,
you want to point the screen to? I'll get Sylvie to hold the camera and explain, and I'll get organised.
I'm not sure if you see that top bit on the building.
A little difficult to hear you, Sylvie.
All right, sorry, maybe now better.
Yes.
That better? Okay. So there's one of the top bits of the building. I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, probably that. I can't see it, sorry. But yeah, it's next to that. Now it's not visible because it's dark, but it's been there since this summer. It's a new camera. It's probably from BBC or I'm not sure, or the police. There is another new camera, which is again, it's not visible, but it's the end of the road on top of that building again. These are new ones, so we are being very heavily surveilled. And obviously, if anyone read the newest article from The Guardian that Manafort visited Julian Assange, it's full of lies and full of, obviously, it's a smear campaign, because if there are cameras everywhere, come on, like, why couldn't they get an evidence of him being here? So it just proves that how much Guardian lies.
Yes, he wasn't even in Britain.
Trust Luke Harding and all these people, because it's obvious what their agenda is.
Yes, he wasn't even in Britain. This guy Manafort. His passport, Manafort's passport shows that he wasn't even in Britain in 2013 and 2015. It's a ridiculous story.
It's a ridiculous one. I don't know how they managed to like publish this, or who actually. Well, we knew that. It's just disgusting. Like, yeah, okay, let's publish it. Seriously, without any facts, just like sources. Another thing what is very weird to me, whenever WikiLeaks publishes a new story, everyone is obviously after the source. Who was the whistleblower? Who's the source? When The Guardian publishes a smear campaign like this, no one really asks who's the source or where did you get your facts from.
Yes.
That's kind of, weirdness about that. Yeah, so these are the cameras. There are other cameras, obviously, which maybe we are not really aware of, but they are here. Some of the windows are always dark. Some of the windows are always open. That's a bit suspicious again. Who is behind? We don't know. Police, I don't know. About that previous picture you were looking at.
Yes. When
they were changing the cameras. That's kind of a funny thing again, because apparently it was broken the day before, but how do we know it was broken? I don't know. It's just speculation. So we don't know that.
Yes.
That's my point. Should I hand you over to Kieran?
Yes. So can we try and match this photo? I'll screenshot it again. Can you do a live? Show the building, because I think I saw the same building. So this again is the photo of the chefs, and the building in the background is.
So that's one of those windows. Is Julian's window.
Really?
Yeah. That's the alleyway.
Oh. So this. No, it's not. It's not, no. Kitty. Remember, Kieran showed Harrods just before, and it's got lights all over it.
Very fancy and Christmassy.
Yes. So this is actually Three Hands Crescent. This is where Julian is.
Yeah.
So the chefs are right there. So it is an amazing picture. Incredible. And who is the lady in the picture?
She was appointed which way to go, where to stop, walk, stand.
Oh, okay. Sure. So she was just a passerby, but you took the photo yourself. Incredible. Okay, so I'll stop the share. What's the weather like at the moment?
Not as cold.
Good.
But yeah, could be worse. It's been raining for the past few days.
Yes.
Now it's okay. So yeah, it's a bit tough when it rains, especially for Kieran, because it's cold and, well, you can't really hide anywhere.
Yes. They would be the worst days, wouldn't they, when it's just above freezing and raining?
Yeah, so that's difficult when it rains, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It rains on the just and the unjust, they tell us. What's that, sorry? Can you repeat? No, I'll show you my crib. I'll literally show you this. Hang on. Yeah, I can't see you. You can see me, can you?
Okay, yes, so, coming in and out. Yes.
So basically, I go. I'm a dumpster diver by trade. I'm a Catholic worker, so most of the stuff I'm using has come from the wealthy who throw out lots of interesting stuff. And I've got enough cologne to drown in, but we found this big cardboard thing here for a big television, and we found heavy plastic, so that's it. And then that's the sleeping bag. You see that? And that's the Guinness. And so yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Well, it's interesting because in Australia, I'm from a subtropical paradise, and sacrifice had to be here. And when you get wet in Australia, you close up a tree and then it's dry in about 3 hours. But you get wet for a very short time in England. You stay wet for a long time. And but I'm getting resupplied by Joe and with dry clothing, and then I met some local people, so we're going to move a lot of that stuff. Like a pacifist military operation. We've got a short supply line. So we met a Saudi corporate lawyer, we met a guy who did 6 years. They're all within 200 meters of the site, and they'll be looking after my dry clothes and filling up water bottles. And the Saudi corporate lawyer just brought me a thermos of hot tea and some instant porridge and some other stuff, and recharged my battery. So
Cool.
People, there are good people everywhere, I mean, it's interesting that more non-violent resistance came out of the US military in the first Gulf War, and probably the recent one, than came out of the US peace movement. So the last place you'd expect anti-war resistance to come from would be within the military, and that's where it came from. And of course, the most extreme example of that was Chelsea Manning. And all Chelsea Manning had to do in Baghdad is to look the other way. And that's all we're asked to do now. I grew up during the Vietnam War. They wanted your firstborn son to go and kill and die in Vietnam. Now all they want you to do is look the other way. And that's what Chelsea Manning refused to do,
Yes.
Because Chelsea Manning grew up in an authentic Welsh-Irish working-class family. And her grandmother said, if you can't say the truth, don't speak at all. And I know
We've seen your ear, basically, Kieran.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
It's a very attractive ear. But so we did many celebrations. We brought Chelsea's mum and 2 aunts and an uncle to Dublin, and Jerry Conlon came down. Now, Jerry Conlon did 16 years in prison for something he didn't do. If you see the film In the Name of the Father, he's played by Daniel Day-Lewis. Gareth Pearce, who's Julian's lawyer now, is played by Emma Thompson. And Peter Postlethwaite plays Giuseppe Conlon, who came from Belfast to get a lawyer for his son and stayed with the Maguire family, who were in-laws, and didn't get to stay the night because the Brits, they raided that house and they took everyone from 14-year-old Patrick to the mother, and the mother did 11 years for nothing. And Patrick was beaten and tortured and is still damaged by that experience. I met Patrick. And that was the Maguires, And my friend Joe Black, you can Google Joe Black Giuseppe Conlon song, and he wanted to write a song about Giuseppe Conlon, and he was in Dublin, and he went to every bookshop to find, and there's 7 books written about the Maguires and the Guildford Four and the Birmingham Guildford Four, and he couldn't find one book in one bookshop. And Dublin is chock-a-block full of 1916 redemptive violent stories. It's chock-a-block full of the Troubles, but not one story about this case. And he went to the Central Library and said, "Have you got a copy of this book?" And the woman looked for it on the computer and said, "We have one copy." And he said, "Where is it?" And he said, "Mountjoy Prison Library." So that was very cool. Incredible. So that shows you what stories get heightened. The stories of redemptive
You can go
violence,
back a little bit from
stories, and what stories like Ballabo by Julian Assange with the scaffolding here, like Giuseppe and Jerry Conlon and Anne Maguire and Patrick Maguire and all those people Gareth Pearce represents, get suppressed, and and it's culturally makes us infantile, because they just want zombies. They want to think through. And that, we speak in Hyde Park every Sunday for Julian.
Yes.
And it's tragic that free speech is a tourist attraction in London. It's been reduced to a tourist attraction like some anachronism, like Amish weaving or something like that. And, that should be happening on every campus, in every neighborhood, in every churchyard, soapbox speaking. And this whole culture of, no platforming people. You've got a young generation that wants censorship, that is puritanical around sexuality, that is so cultish and judgmental. They want to tell you what you have to look like. So, I have dreadlocks because I'm an Irish Republican back family. I'm born in Brisbane. We're planters there, and we're oppressing Aboriginal people just by being there. So my dreadlocks is a symbol of self-exile from that privilege. And I'm told by some kid who's never been strip searched, who's never been raided at 3 a.m, who's never had a gun put to their head, that I'm somehow, politically incorrect, And really, I don't need to hear from that kid because I know Sam Watson from the Black Panthers. He did Welcome to Country at my father's funeral. I'll listen to Aboriginal people, but I'll not listen to some kid on, really wanking on their, before they go home to mummy and daddy and go back to professional life to tell me about Aboriginal people. I've been in jail with Aboriginal people and now I'm homeless. Now look, the most intimate place you can be up to this point with the poor has been prison. You lose all your status in prison. And now I've discovered even a deeper level, and that is being on the streets with them. So I walk up to McDonald's, right? Yeah. And politically correct and incorrect place to go. I pass homeless people and I take orders. I said, "You want a coffee?" Very funny, the other day, there's a guy sitting outside McDonald's. I said, "Can I get your coffee?" He said, "Well, they've actually got a thing called millionaire latte in there." And I'm like, isn't that a bit ironic? But anyway, so I go in there and the morning staff there are so tolerant to the homeless. They let them in and use the bathroom. They don't buy anything. And these are basically Afro-Caribbean Christians and Muslims who know about hospitality, because that's basic to Judaism, it's basic to Islam, it's basic to Christianity, that you're hospitable to the stranger,
Yes.
Now, all those traditions have been co-opted by states and weaponized. Buddhism has been co-opted in Thailand by the royal family. Everything can be co-opted. And they're the three temptations Jesus confronted in the desert: power, wealth, status. And that's co-opted to the IRA. The IRA are now being paid by the British government to run the north of Ireland. That's ridiculous. And these are people who went to jail. These are people who were beaten and tortured. These are people who risked their lives and took lives. So anything can be co-opted. And the Brits, as one IRA guy said on the hunger strike, remember they invented cricket. They're into the long game, and this has been a long game. This embassy, 6 years.
Yes.
Of torturing this man, not only physically and depriving him of sunlight, but mentally as well.
Yes.
And you got to be very careful how they're going to use the Mental Health Act against Julian Assange, because the Mental Health Act can get you extracted from anywhere, So, the Home Secretary a few months ago, he expressed concern about the mental health of Julian Assange. Now, you've got to be careful, because all this is prepare for an extraction, an armed extraction. They're going to go in here with weapons. I remember the first day at Occupy, and Julian was there. And I got up and we had a thing called Sermon on the Steps, because it's St. Paul's Cathedral.
Yes.
And my favourite slogan of Occupy in London was, "This is the winter of our discount tents." It's Shakespearean. And
yes,
we've been using a pop-up tent here in the alley before we moved on to the more Norwegian architecture of the lean-to. But we're the pop-up tent is a symbol of refugees, after they destroyed Libya, the most literate country in Africa that was not in debt, and Stop the War supported that, in England. And they flew bombing missions from England with no protests. And so it's, there's a huge refugee solidarity movement in Australia, and there should be, but they should make the link to war. Because the Catholic worker, in its most radical sense, is, you pull people out of the river, you feed them and you shelter them, but you go upriver and you find out who's throwing them in that river and you confront them non-violently. Now, recently, the editor of the New York Catholic Worker I wrote an article about solidarity. She censored any, Joe Kennedy censored any mention of Assange and Manning. She took every reference in my article of Assange and Manning out.
Wow.
So even the Catholic Worker, the Catholic Anarchist Pacifist paper founded by Dorothy Day, but when the Pope spoke in Congress, he referenced 4 Americans. 3 of them were pacifists. Abraham Lincoln was not. Thomas Merton, the monk, was. Martin Luther King was. And Dorothy Day, you know. And now to have an editor of her paper that she founded in 1933 censor Julian Assange. And when she was confronted on that, she said, Julian isn't very popular. Now, how popular was Jesus Christ on Good Friday? You know, he had 3 women at the foot of the cross. No men. They all did a runner. And one even sold him out, right? It was a spy cop, Judas. Now, you know, how popular was Dorothy Day's position on the Spanish Civil War with her leftist mates in New York